Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to our final in our candidate forums for the day. We are here to meet with some of our Sheboygan Area School District Board candidates. After doing this 5 times already, my words are very jumbled at this point, so bear with me. Anyhow, again, I'm Deidre Martinez, CEO of the Sheboygan County Chamber of Commerce. I want to say thank you for folks who've shown up today. Thank you to our candidates who've come to participate in the conversation and your willingness to serve in this role. Thank you to our friends at WSCS for their partnership in making this available to the public beyond our conference room walls. And then, of course, another quick thank you to our friends at Prevea Health, as they are sponsors of the Chamber's governmental affairs and advocacy programs. So it allows us an opportunity to do work like this and educate the community. So with that, we'll go over just a few ground rules. In a moment, we'll go down the line and give everyone an opportunity to give a 2-minute introduction of themselves. We have our wonderful timekeeper, Kaylee, here. She is going to just help to give you a friendly nudge so that we can keep it moving along. Once you've had an opportunity to introduce yourself, we'll go through a Q&A. I'll do my very best. Since there's 4 of you rather than 2, we'll probably just kind of go like this and then come back and forth. Otherwise, I will really get confused about whose turn it is. So help me. So with that, any questions before we get going? No? Okay, awesome. Well, Roger, we will start with you if you'd like to give an introduction of yourself.
I thought it'd be ladies first. Yeah, we moved to Sheboygan in 2021 after 20 years in Mexico, where we have a K-12 micro school. Our adult children moved to Sheboygan and work in the district as special ed teachers. We're very proud of them. We're grateful for that, and especially we love our daughter's principal, Amy. So I have a personal interest in the district. Sheboygan is home. My wife, Marcy, and I volunteer at Great Marriages, and I work the polls now 4 times. They won't let me on the 1st of April. Sheboygan is a great town, and we are concerned it stays that way. Whoever controls the schools controls the future. We are meeting the minimum requirements for literacy and math. That's basically a C. And the standards have been dropped, so it's worse than it even appears. And if we're satisfied with that, we're never going to improve. Some people think we're doing great, but the measures are adult satisfaction, not student outcomes. We can do better. If we really want to improve, we have to be honest. And we have all the talented and dedicated people to do it. Sheboygan can and should be one of the best performing districts in the nation. There's no reason we can't. And I also believe that education is a local affair. I believe families and teachers working together. The problem isn't the students or the parents or the teachers, the admin or the taxpayers. It's the educational establishment. So I guess I'm out of time. Well, I have 30 seconds. Well, two things.
Go for it. You've still got a few more yet.
Yeah, okay. I think public education in the U.S. has been taken over by radical ideologies, like the pedagogy of the oppressed and all of that comes out of that, funded by people from far away with a lot of money and full of awfully good ideas, whose primary goal is to radicalize the student. We need to evaluate those. Second point, it's human nature over time to get stuck and not want to change. I've got many years of experience teaching, and as an educator and a leader in education, 22 years in the Army training troops, and I'm qualified to do this.
Great. Thank you so much. Mary Lynn.
Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber. My name is Mary Lynn Donohue, and I'm running for re-election to the Sheboygan Area School District Board of Education. I was elected in 2022, and shortly after that made president of the board. I served in that capacity for 2 years and have passed that along. In addition, I previously served on the board from 1996 to 2002. That's when my kids were still in the schools. I have a deep and profound commitment to the concept of public education in general, and certainly and specifically to the Sheboygan Area School District. I grew up here, graduated from North High. My husband graduated from South High. And I moved away thinking I would never move back. After many years of education and some wonderful adventures living abroad, traveling through the United States, I returned to Sheboygan in 1981. I met my husband, and it was the best decision that I made. The key piece of my life as a retired lawyer and all through the time that I have lived in Sheboygan is to be of service. I have been of service to this community in many, many different ways, and it is a profound commitment that I make to the community that has given my family and me so much. And I think that I will continue to bring that service mentality to the school board. I am hardworking, I pay attention, I ask questions, and I'm going to ask for the support of this community in re-electing me.
Thank you. Denise?
Yes. So Deidre, thank you to the Chamber and to you for having us here. I'm Denise Wittstock. I'm the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I am running for an open seat in the out-of-city district area. I do live in the town of Sheboygan. I am a product of the Sheboygan Area School District. I graduated from South High School, as did my husband, and like Mary Lynne, went abroad to experience the world, live throughout the United States. And my husband and I, when we had our children, decided that it was important to leave the Phoenix, Arizona area and return here to raise our family here. We appreciated what we experienced in the Sheboygan Area School District. We wanted to be in this community and around family. And so we left 20 years of our life in the Southwest and moved here to raise our family. In that capacity, I have a second grade son and twin third grade daughters currently in one of the Sheboygan area public schools. So my experience as a mother and my experience as the leader of Big Brothers Big Sisters, I believe brings a very unique perspective to the table and to add value to the conversation. As a nonprofit leader, we have to be flexible and innovate all the time, always looking for ways to be nimble and modify our programming and our approach to meet children and families where they're at. And I didn't realize how much that would bleed over into my parenting. As I have to shape and guide three young people to become amazing humans. There are so many things I talk about in my work life and in my parenting life that bleed over. And I'm thrilled at what my children are learning in school. The teachers are amazing. We've had such a great experience, and I'm looking forward to bringing some of that in front of the curtain and behind the curtain knowledge to the conversation at the table. So I appreciate everybody's consideration in electing me to that role.
Thank you, Denise. Allie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Allie Tasche, and I, like many here, are graduates. I'm a graduate from the district, and I'm a proud graduate of the district. I owe so much of the success that I've had in experiences that really started for me as early as elementary school. And I have been raised by educators, some within this district. So I grew up with a really strong passion for learning and within a space that really supported what now I believe is really traditional education. In that space, I was a high performer. I was the kid with anxiety that you never knew, but was constantly trying to get straight A's. And I had a lot of experiences from clubs and activities that really showed me how important Sheboygan Area School District is at a community level. It's not just what's going on in our classrooms, but that is so critical. I am really excited to be able to bring multiple lenses as a former special education teacher, really with a specialization in reading intervention and in complex disabilities like autism, in behavioral intervention, a lot of the areas that our school systems have struggled to support over years. And I agree that we need strong evidence-based curriculum. We also have to make sure that we're not just giving our teachers the tools that they need, but that they have access to ongoing training and learning, so that as we continue to keep the bar set really high, we're giving them the opportunity to meet their professional learning goals. I saw how my opportunities to lead from the classroom grew as I went from teaching to coaching to the nonprofit in the role of Vice President of National Programs for Autism Society. And that experience really showed me how we can work together from a policy level to impact programming and practices that will support our children, including my two children in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move into the question and answer portion of the forum. So again, excuse me, each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. And we will start with you, Allie. Cell phone policies in schools. Many schools in Wisconsin have recently, or over the past few years, we've seen it really increase, adopted stricter cell phone bans, with some even requiring phones to be stored in lockers or locked pouches throughout the day. Proponents argue that this reduces distractions and cyberbullying, while opponents raise concerns about the emergency access and parental communication. What is your stance on banning cell phones in schools, not just in the classroom, but throughout the school day? And do you believe that cell phones impact academics in a negative way?
So I really believe that we have to have a balanced approach to any kind of a universal policy within the district that meets the learning expectations at every level. It's clear to me that policies at the elementary level and middle school and high school level need to be different. But I think that we really need to focus on prioritizing learning within a space that allows us to consider student and family safety in that equation. We recognize that there's a lot of gaps in technology access. So a rule that says this is for everyone is oftentimes not going to work in our school systems, and we have to think about everybody having access to what they need to succeed. That said, I was recently in a high school classroom, and I was happy to not have people, Snapchatting me and things like that. I think it's really critical that we have strict use policies at the building level, and that those policies are consistent. If I have a middle schooler going to Horace Mann, I want to know that those cell phone policies are going to be the same as at Urban, and vice versa across our district. But we really have to consider the opportunities for learning and the distraction and balance that. So I'm not against a complete ban in the same perspective that I wouldn't want to give the same tool to everyone. I don't want to take away the same tool for everyone. So we really have to listen to the students and the teachers to see what is a good balance and check-in and check-out system.
Thank you. Denise?
It's such a hard question because you want to provide that learning and access for kids that don't have it. But I consider my own children who are elementary level, they have to earn their time on their technology. It's not something that's automatically given to them. And I also serve kids who rely on a cell phone, one cell phone for the family to gain access to the internet to do their homework at night. And so, like Allie said, district building level policies make sense based on maturity and the age of the student and the use of technology. And as a mother, if something happened to my child and there was some sort of violent incident, I would want to be able to get a hold of them. So it's a very challenging question. If we can figure out a way to allow technology in general, and I believe at the building level they have that, Chromebooks and iPads and access to computers, that's necessary and can enhance the learning opportunity. They don't need their cell phones. There are plenty of opportunities throughout the day to access those and to check in with parents and families. So I think I would probably say the same thing without knowing any more statistics or details around it. I'd want to get some teacher input as to when it could potentially be appropriate, but I believe that maturity level, building access, and figuring out a way to make it accessible for those when it's an emergency is the best course of action to make sure it doesn't interfere with learning.
Thank you. Mary Lynne?
I think something needs to be done. There's currently a bill pending before the legislature to ban the use of cell phones in schools, period. I've never looked to the legislature for school policy, as that's really not their wheelhouse. However, if you volunteer in a classroom, if you teach in a classroom, if you're just in a classroom, you understand that kids are pretty wildly distracted, from my experience, by cell phones and other kinds of technology while they're in the classroom. It makes sense to me that we have a policy, a school district policy, that would ban the use of cell phones and other technology, laptops, tablets, while kids are in the classroom. Park your stuff at the teacher's desk or whatever while you're in that classroom. Each of our students has access to a Google Chromebook. Those are regulated by the school district so that educational materials are shared because obviously our children need to learn on technology because that's how we're all learning. But let's keep the extraneous stuff out of the classroom. For those of us who do any student teaching, it's really highly frustrating as a teacher to have the child with the cell phone. And kids are clever, you know. I mean, school districts that have tried this, you know, you park your cell phone and such in a caddy, and there'll be fake phones put in, and you know, so that sort of thing. So our children are wonderfully innovative, but I think that we can do this. Now, the school district in Sheboygan Falls has instituted a cell phone policy. I think we should check to see how that's going and learn from other districts and really address it in a thoughtful kind of way.
Thank you. Roger.
Cell phones were a problem with our school in Mexico, so we started collecting them in the morning, and they were upstairs in a little bin, you know, and we had to remind the students to turn them off because it sounded like crickets all day long. Bzz, bzz, bzz. You can't get anything done. So, yes, I think there needs to be a policy. My son says it's a policy in North High School. So he's got one student especially that's always playing games, and he can't get him to pay attention to what he's doing, and he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. So it needs to be something, and I guess I think we ought to hear from the teachers and the principals and kind of let them decide how they want to handle it, but say, you know, don't let it be a distraction. This is part of modern life, and I understand all the pros and cons about emergencies and that sort of thing, but I think maybe the teacher could handle that if they have their telephone, that there's something that does need to be done because it's a distraction.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll start down on your end, Roger, is about the Human Growth and Development curriculum in the Sheboygan Area School District. SASD recently updated its curriculum to include definitions of gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation for 8th grade students, which sparked community discussion. Supporters argue these updates promote inclusivity and understanding, while some parents have expressed concerns about age appropriateness and curriculum transparency. What is your stance on the current Human Growth and Development curriculum, and do you believe any changes are needed? If so, what specific improvements or updates would you support?
Well, I've looked at it extensively. I went through the whole thing, and it's since the 80s it's been called Human Growth and Development. It's basically comprehensive sex ed. And I think that we're grooming students when we do those kinds of things. One of the things I would really like to do is make it obligatory to get parental permission before you do this with the students. Not that the parent has to come in and ask and has to go through the hoops to ask for their child not to have to do this. If they don't agree with that, we need to respect their authority over their children.
Thank you. Mary Lynn.
We have an extensive human growth and development curriculum. However, it takes a very small portion of any student's time. And in those 10 hours per year that a student would take human growth and development curriculum and instruction, a lot is shared. It's all evidence-based. It's factual, it's helpful, it's correct, and it really assists parents in guiding children through a world of sexuality and sexualization that was simply unknown in my time, and I think in other times as well. So I strongly support evidence-based education for all of our students. Now, the school district understands that not every parent feels this way. So parents need to opt in for early sex ed, and they can opt out for later in middle school and high school sex ed. So the curriculum is widely available. How is it put together? It's put together by a citizens committee. The Human Growth and Development Committee meets once a month, and it consists of at least 2 ministers, community members, and assistance from teachers and so forth. So face it, our kids learn a lot even before they get into human growth and development. As a parent, I was very happy that my kids learned the facts, and they learned about other people, and they learned about the concept of inclusivity and respect for how people are, how they feel, what their nature is, because we're all created equal, and we should really pay attention to that. So, to the extent, I mean, that's a big, that's obviously a big ask, but to the extent that human growth and development does that, I am truly grateful. We do a great job in the district. Thank you.
Denise? Well, as a parent, I do have to opt in. I'm given access to the videos. I get to watch them ahead of time and decide if my children get to participate in that class or not. And the reality is, in my house, which is perhaps different than other households, we talk about our bodies because I have a boy and 2 girls. And they're all very close in age, and so there are questions that come up, and we want to teach them ourselves. We don't want them to learn out on the playground. We don't want them to learn through television. We don't want them to learn through other places. So I appreciate the manner in which the community has come together to decide on the curriculum. I also appreciate that our curriculum includes this, per the state requirement, that part of the lessons include conversations and teaching about abstinence. It's equally important. The reality is, in lieu of what we wish all parents had the capacity to do and teach their children, in the absence of that happening, our kids deserve to learn somewhere. And they deserve to learn through fact, medical research, and evidence-based instruction. We can all wish that parents had the capacity, but the reality is many families don't feel comfortable talking about gender expression and gender identity, but it exists in our world, and our children deserve to have an understanding of it just as much as the children who are experiencing that deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And it's a big ask of teachers, it's a big ask of our schools, but in the absence of what we all wish would be happening in people's homes, I believe that our district has done a great job getting many voices at the table to determine the best way to give our children the foundations in the appropriate age groups that they have the developmental assessments to learn.
Thank you. Allie?
I echo a lot of the sentiments that, from a parent standpoint, I've experienced the opt-in. From a teacher standpoint, we've got to send out a letter and get parent permission before we show certain movies for celebrations and things like that. I think that those multiple lines of communication are important. But from a curriculum standpoint, I think that we do have to pay attention to what's mandated by state law, which is that we have the community committee overseeing, which is that we have an abstinence focus, but that we have to have medically accurate information. I do come from a perspective of risk mitigation and reducing harm in our communities in multiple perspectives. I've spent my entire career supporting individuals with disabilities who are 2 times more likely to experience sexual violence, and individuals who are at more, higher risk of being taken advantage of. I think it's really important from that perspective that all of our curriculum, including our human growth and development curriculum, is modified to meet the appropriate level of the students who are taking in that information. It has to be accessible. It has to be something that we can support families to talk about in school or at home. But we also really have to be aware that our curriculum mirrors the needs of our community. And while it might not be the school's place to teach anybody about their identity, conversations happen at recess. Kids are talking about these different things, and we have to make connections between mental health and the conversation about what we're teaching in our curriculum and in human growth and development. Because if we are not teaching autonomy and agency and safety and consent and boundaries, we're really setting our students up to go into a world that they're not prepared for. So that's my take on that.
Thank you so much. And let's transition, talk a little bit more about the academic performance of the Sheboygan Area School Districts. There are lots of different surveys and studies and different groups that measure and all the things. So I won't speak to, one over another. because it's a matter of perception which one might be right or wrong. But there has been and continues to be some pretty significant concern about the academic performance of students coming out of the Sheboygan Area School District, especially as they transition into a workforce space. We talk about it from a workforce attraction perspective. How do we get more people to move here, to fill our roles, to work, live, play in our community when our school districts are not performing maybe at the academic, in the academic space in which we, as a parent myself of 6 children, would expect. And so I'd love to, hear your thoughts on academic performance in the school districts, and what action do you think that the school board can take moving forward to help increase the academic performance of our students specifically. We'll start with you, Allie.
Great. I think that we have to have a comprehensive understanding that what we're talking about, where the data is coming from, and what pictures we're looking at. I really struggle to look at data for the entire district without disaggregating it, so that we're understanding which students are performing really well, which students are struggling, and then look at what are their shared or different instructional practices. I love the fact that our district has so many different programs, and at the same time, when you have a student in one building, they might be getting a very different instructional experience than a student in another building. And so I think that we have to do more of what we're beginning to do in the district with professional learning communities, developing common assessments so that every student in 8th grade is measured by the same standards. I think we need to look at the curriculum standards as well as the way that our students are being assessed. I have had the experience of administering our forward exam to students with and without disabilities, and I have been shocked at some of the questions and how they're not aligned with what we're doing in the school system, which is following best practice from a committee. So we really have to get all of the pieces to play together. And I think that when we're looking at the achievement gaps, we have to recognize so many of them as opportunity gaps. We have to think about which of our students had access to the science of reading instruction, who is piloting and really leading the best practices in any given grade, and how can we build up those teaching practices so that all of our educators have access to using the same tools and resources to get those improved outcomes. I think it comes down to supporting our educators differently than we have. Professional development is not a one and done, and we need ongoing job-embedded coaching and resources to support this growth.
Thank you. Denise.
Goodness, I have a couple ideas that come to mind around this, but one, not everybody's a great test taker, let's be honest. There are naturally inherent challenges when it comes to standardized testing and administering that same test to every student in every building at the same day of the year. And so I just experienced parent-teacher conferences for 2nd and 3rd grade, and we looked at the scores, and it took about 8 seconds, and then we talked for another 15 minutes about what's really happening in the classroom and how they're really performing, and based on this test score, what would we really expect your son or daughter to be doing. And so I think that relationship building and figuring out ways to get parent engagement at a higher level could play a role in that. I also think about looking at the schools in the district, making a statement. You can't make a statement about the Sheboygan Area School District that says it's just doing poorly when in the next breath we're talking about how it was listed on the Forbes list as one of the top 35 places to work in the state, and the only school district to do so. So we've got to figure out where are things working well, what schools have great scores, what is unique about that school and the instructional model, what is perhaps you mentioned Amy earlier at Sheridan, she's got a great program going on there. So what about it is unique compared to some other elementary schools, and what could we learn from that? How could we innovate and meet kids where they're at? If a school if students aren't performing as well, what is their access to technology at home? The reality is there are families with many children who use one cell phone to access the internet at night to do their homework. So how can we learn from innovation that's happening in buildings? How can we potentially use that as best practice and replicate it in a unique way to meet students where they're at? But I think looking at standardized scores is never going to get us the answer we want, because not every student is different and not every educator is the same.
Thank you. Mary Lynn.
Well, I got about 20 minutes worth of material for this question, but I'm going to talk fast. But so the report card that people are talking about is the forward exam and those test results. Students take them in 4th, 8th, and 10th grade, and they measure math, science, reading. The test is taken usually in March for those students. They are standardized tests. As Denise pointed out, there are many, many students who do not do well on standardized tests. Parents get the results in July, and teachers get the results when the school year begins. Think of a medical test that you get for something that's important to you in March, and you get the results in July. The forward exam is important, but to measure a school district's ability to educate its students, its success in educating those students, is a fool's errand. I'm just going to say that. It's not popular, but I don't care. Now, those standards did get changed around in the last year. I don't know how that happened. What I know is that because we know that our students learn differently and have different challenges, we have our college and career readiness report card. Now, that is a terrific instrument that measures students on a variety of different tests and different levels to see how they're doing. And you know the important part? We actually use those report card scores to influence our curriculum, to work with students, to see where we're succeeding and where we're not. We do great work, I'm just going to say, in terms of preparing students who do not want to go to college. I'm looking at radar robotics. I am looking at the LTC program for computer education. We just finished our 27th house that students build. That house sold for $426,000. We do a terrific job in spite of that Forward Wisconsin exam, and my time is up. Thank you. Roger.
Yeah, this is a concern. I was looking for data, and the only thing I could find was 2023. Here we are in March of 2025. Where's the 24 data? Because according to the 2023 data, on one source said that about only 40% of our students are where they're supposed to be for language and math skills. It's great that we're number 35 on the Forbes thing, but that's a measure of adult satisfaction, not student outcomes. What are the standards? We shouldn't lower our standards to meet anybody's, not the state's or anybody else's. We should determine that ourselves. And I think actually the best thing the board can do is set 1 to 5 focused goals, smart goals, to be achieved in 3 to 5 years, and turn the superintendent and his staff loose and say, be creative. What do you want to do? Give them the freedom instead of telling them what to do or how to do it. Like a colonel I used to work for used to say, tell them where the hen house is, don't tell them how to suck eggs. So I think we have really great teachers, and there's a lot of good things going on, and we do have low-income students, but I think we can beat that. We can do better by them. I think we have the talent and the gifted people who want to do it. Just need to turn them loose.
Thank you. So we'll continue down that path talking about preparing students for the workforce and supporting educators. So less on the standardized test portion of it. That certainly plays a role in our world at the Chamber. The much larger role that we hope to play is the transition from graduating high school, going off to college or tech school, et cetera, or going directly into the workforce. And what we hear often is that students are not prepared to go to work. Whether it's the basic reading and math fundamentals, to the socialization, to the lack of respect, maybe soft skills, kind of all over the board. And we'll start down on your side this time, Roger. What areas for improvement do you see in how SASD prepares students for post-graduation success, whether in careers or higher ed? And how can we better support the educators in the classroom to ensure that they do have the resources and professional development they need?
I'd go back to what I said before, to set goals and let the superintendent go to work on it and report back intermediate goals to see how we're progressing there. work with the community, people are going to hire them, bring them in and actually ask them what they're looking for, ask the teachers how we can help them. My son has a student who wants to go to work. He's just itching to go to work with his dad. I remember when I was a high school kid, I wanted to get out of there and go to work. I ended up going to college, but I think there's a natural thing to want to be productive. And so it would be one of those things. Also, I think we ought to get out into the community again and make sure that we're aligned with the community's values and vision for what their schools are. And I think that's really important to have that information. That may be a piece that's lacking. I don't know. But I'd like to hear from the teachers and the principals as well.
Thank you. Mary Lynn. And that's what we do every day in the Sheboygan Area School District. We're looking at how we can make sure that our students are ready to enter the world that they choose to enter. The innovative programming that the Sheboygan Area School District has taken on in the past number of years is really quite extraordinary. I can talk a little slower now. The robotics program that is present in both high schools to prepare students who want to go into the trades out of high school. The house construction, which is just one of my favorites, because that started when I was first on the school board 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. What we're doing right now with Lakeland College, the collaborative learning that is happening there, where our students can take college credits for free at Lakeland University, and they also count towards high school credits. And then and that's tuition free. And then those children can go to Lakeland University and graduate in 2 years with a 4-year college degree. This is innovation in our school district. It happens every day, everywhere. Now, we do have standards. Teachers are held to those standards. Right now, we're doing professional development days instead of, for those of us who are parents, when your kids got out of school at 2:20 on Wednesdays. Now, teachers get a full day from time to time, professional learning communities, really looking at the science of reading. We use Lexia reading program. We use Bridges mathematics program. All of these ways that we are trying to be innovative to make sure that our kids are moving forward and that they're well prepared for the world. And that's what we do every day, everywhere, in every building.
Denise.
Thank you. I'm going to skip the reading and math part and talk about the other two things that you mentioned, the socialization and the soft skills, because that's what we do all day. I'm going to say that I've heard the same thing from business leaders. I said, what is the one thing that Big Brothers Big Sisters can do to help your business? What could we, if you had a wish, what would our program do? Put kids out into the workforce that have the soft skills, the desire to work, the drive, the ethic, and the socialization to do well in the community. I'm just going to be honest and say that isn't solely on a teacher. That's not solely on a teacher. That's not their only responsibility. We can wish families would do it, parents would do it, guardians would do it, foster parents would do it. And in the absence of that, we need to really look at our community services and figure out ways to engage more than the 100 clubs that already exist in the schools within the district, but engage community partners, engage nonprofits, engage people that are experts in some of these other areas, or bring programs that already exist in some of these other areas into the schools, figure out innovative ways to bring things to children, remove the barriers and bring them into the schools. So kids may want to go to school so that we may affect truancy when we get to middle school and high school. We may affect some of those soft skills because they feel more self-confident and they learn some interpersonal relationship building. All of us have been a child at one point in our life, so we can remember what it's like and try to relate to those young people. I think it's being better prepared for math and reading. We've got to get kids excited to go to school. And how do we do that? It's not by telling them that reading is going to be really exciting tomorrow, because you're not going to want to miss it. We need to figure out how can we build community where children are and address these things with partners and not just rely on our teachers.
Thank you. Allie.
to bring that together, we have to teach them to read to learn and learn to read, which we've heard a lot. And I think it comes from multiple perspectives. I am really stunned by the programs that we have in the district now that weren't available when I was a learner, and that wasn't that long ago. I'm really excited to see the partnerships with local businesses as well as universities and trade schools from the internship perspective and apprenticeship perspective. But I think that there's even opportunities that don't have to be full-on programs. We have to give experiences, and maybe it is a day of service learning that sparks a curiosity. But one of the things that I'm really passionate about is that we have to teach kids to know how they learn best. That will fuel them throughout their life, instead of focusing just on studying rote memorization to be able to regurgitate something, which might get us higher test scores. I think we have to balance that. I'm not discounting testing. I think it's critical, but we have to balance that with teaching students their learning styles, their learning preferences, how to advocate for themselves if they need learning opportunities to be presented differently. And I feel so lucky to have found my passion 17 years ago as a member of the Youth Tutoring Youth Program at North High School. I found disability services, and then I had an incredible community here in Sheboygan to learn at Camp Evergreen, to learn at Homes for Independent Living, which gave me a hand up in my special education training and really provided me the pathway to be able to succeed, because I found what drove me. And I think we have to help students learn what drives them so that we're not spending down 8 years of a 4-year degree student loan debt because we didn't have that opportunity in high school. I really support our hands-on exploration, and I hope that we can continue to grow what we've started.
Thank you. We're going to expand on that a little bit, and we'll have you start. So give us an idea of what steps would you take to strengthen the partnerships between SASD and local businesses to ensure that education and industry are working collaboratively for the benefit of the community as a whole. So not just the students, not just the parents, not just the teachers, but this is a society. So how do we get everybody involved? What does that really look like?
I think it starts with improving our communication channels. There are a lot of folks that have interest in schools, and if they're not on Facebook, they might not have as much knowledge. I'm grateful that we're starting to send out some community level reports, but it still is relying on a lot of folks to come to us to say, hey, I saw this newsletter, I have this idea, let's talk. I think we need to create some really established community partnerships and community conversations so that we can have representatives from a range of businesses, large, medium, and small, and from a range of service provisions so that we can really connect who do we have in our community as leaders of the future. How do we support and align what we are offering to students? How do we fill gaps so that parents and families also have that knowledge and understanding and can walk alongside their student in navigating some of the choices, because sometimes there's so many, they're overwhelming. We need to be able to pair at every level at elementary school. What are we doing to better support collaboration that is going to fuel workforce development, that's going to fuel Sheboygan's economy in the future, at middle school, at high school, and beyond? And we can't leave out those students, the 20% of our students who are neurodivergent in our society, who have some incredibly unique ways of thinking and solving problems outside of the box, who might not be eligible for something if it's just merit-based on a test score. So we really have to be creative to get to know the skills that we're preparing for in the future, and we have to get ahead of technology because, like it or not, AI is here to stay, and we have to think about how we're solving for problems that we haven't yet encountered. As a district, we have to be proactive rather than being reactive, and we can only do that if we bring our community alongside.
Thank you. Denise.
I feel like this question is one that I answer every day. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, that is exactly the conversation we're having with businesses in the community. We're asking, what are your goals? What is the impact you want to have in the community? And how can we bring the work that we do into your business so that we can expand the awareness of our young people of what you do, the career paths that are available, what kind of education you may potentially need, what's your academic planning to be involved in something like that, and how can we do that in ways that are going to meet the internal goals for your company? What kind of culture are you trying to build? How do you want to bring some passion to your employees so that they can get involved in some of these initiatives and see the impact in real time? I think the district, that's a large ask, of course, because there's so many amazing businesses here and so many different things that we can do to introduce students, learners to some of the things that exist here. But I do think that there are definitely, if you go back to the root and the definition of the word partnership, there are things in it for both parties. And what are you trying to work collaboratively towards? The students of today are going to be the ones that take care of us tomorrow, those of us that are not quite as young and recent learners as Allie. But that's what we do in our business. We think about creative ways to show kids, yes, you could go off to college in 4 years, but you could work for a multi-billion-dollar company right here in Sheboygan County. You don't have to go to LA. You don't have to go to New York. You can stay here and do that. And this is an amazing community that has a lot of opportunity for growth to bring people here. So if you get in the trades, you could have a lot of work. You could build houses. You could build schools. You could build, you can repair things. You can do all of those things with your hands. All of that exists right here. It's a natural thing. I think this district would have to invest in some management to explore that kind of opportunity.
Thank you. Mary Lynn.
Well, what Allie and Denise said, and then just taking into account how concretely the district is beginning and is trying to do those things, because we realize that the industry in this community is so important to how well our school district does. Just, you know, the bottom line of property taxes. More business here, more people moving in, more housing. That means that our schools can continue to grow and to prosper and to branch out. I do think, for example, Radar Robotics does a terrific job. Radar Robotics the programs do a terrific job, but what's happening with AI? What forward steps can the district take, working with local businesses to begin to train our students for what I am perceiving will be a truly life-changing occurrence isn't exactly the word, but it will restructure how we live, how we think. The school district right now, with its emphasis on community service, on workplace credentialing, I had mentioned the dual credit Lakeland and LTC programs. Those are excellent beginnings, and let's step up and see what we can do.
Thank you. Roger.
Well, what occurs to me is, oh gosh. I can call him back. You couldn't hear that, could you? It's in my ear. One of the things that occurs to me is apprenticeship programs. I don't know if we have those or not, but I think most of the businesses are interested in this sort of thing. I was a Rotarian years ago in DeSoto, Texas, and we loved to do those kinds of things. We did work with the schools, the local schools, and those people have that kind of spirit, and they are business people. And they are professionals. So that's a place to go and say, ask the Rotary clubs, for example, ask the other service clubs in town, hey, what ideas could you throw us to help us better prepare our students for where you need them, what skills you need in your business. Just invite them in to talk to the kids, too. I don't think it's that difficult.
Some say that, and others give us a completely different response.
Maybe so.
It's a matter of perspective, maybe.
Knock them upside the head.
We will transition into our final question. I know we are short on time. Obviously, we have a larger group for this forum, so thank you for bearing with me a little bit longer. But we don't want to, we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about budget management and fiscal responsibility. And so, Roger, we will start with you. So SASD's budget is, I believe, about $166 million. Now, this could be outdated information because it's not always. The district also faces challenges like rising costs, as we all do, limited state funding, and a significant portion of property tax revenue being redirected to fund private school vouchers. How would you prioritize spending to support academic programs, staff retention, and facilities improvements without significantly raising the taxes?
Well, again, here's another thing. I was looking for the numbers, and all I could find was 2023. Here we are halfway through the next year. Where are the 2024 figures? And it was interesting to me, according to what I saw, is that 57% of the revenue comes from the state already anyways. Only 20% comes from local property taxes. So I know the voucher thing is a controversy, but I like to have parents have a choice of where they can, and there are some of those choice things here already, but you have to be competitive. Most of the parents do want to come to the public schools. That's what they're used to. That's what they grew up with. So if we have competitive results, we'll be able to beat that, I think. So I also noticed that about 52% of the expenses in cash, taking out depreciation, go to actual classroom instruction. I'd like to get behind that and see why, if we couldn't increase that, get the money down to the classroom and reward the teachers that are doing a good job.
Thank you. Mary Lynn.
The Sheboygan Area School District is an exceptionally well-run, financially well-run institution. Our annual budget is about $146 million. We recently received a AA1 bond rating from rating service. This will save us about $16 million in interest on the referenda loans that we'll be taking out. We actually saved money to put toward the referendum. So with a cost of $130 or so million to build the new middle schools, we saved up $14 million. So we only requested $121 million from our taxpayers. All of this information is available on the website. Just look at the school board minutes, and all of this information is accessible. I think we're an extraordinarily well-run, financially well-run institution. And the fact that we have been steadily decreasing our property tax levy. Now, if we had the mill rate actually went from $6.09 per thousand down to $5.54. If it had, it's actually gone to $5.56, but with the referendum, it's $5.44. There's been a steady decline in property taxes for the payment of property taxes for local taxpayers, and I'm proud of that, and I think that we'll continue to do that. Voucher schools take about $6.5 million. We get the money from the state, and then we pay it back to the state, and then the state pays the voucher schools. We recoup that money through property taxes. At a minimum, I'd just like people to see that on their property tax bill, that $6.5 million of their property taxes are going to support private schools, and that, I think, is an easy ask. So you're in a good place with the Sheboygan Area School District financially.
Thank you. Denise.
Well, if there's one thing that a nonprofit leader is good at, it's managing a budget very tightly. So, and being innovative about it. You know, I wonder, this is where I wonder a lot, and I would throw out a lot of questions because I don't, without having studied it and understanding what's behind some of those numbers, you don't have the answer today. But I would wonder, what could we save in contracts? What could we save in expenses if we were to really get innovative and leverage some of our community partners to bring in services that are currently being paid for? I wonder, because there are things that I think the district should invest in that are new costs. We talked about this in the past about, do our schools have enough teachers and do we have enough staff in our schools to really manage safety, the day-to-day safety things that go on. I would wonder about, when it comes to vouchers, I went to private school when I was in elementary school, and then I came into the public district in middle school. I think that it's something that is I appreciate the choice. However, I believe that the majority of our community doesn't understand that their tax dollars are going to support things like this. And I wonder if everyone wanted to get into the public schools, are they big enough? Many of our schools are very old. They need to be updated. They need to be expanded. It's a catch-22 because you wish everybody would come, but we don't have the space for them. Or can we attract the teachers? Or do we have affordable housing in the community? All of this is probably not answering your question, Deidre, but I think there's a lot of things I would need to learn to make a good recommendation. I think that innovation has to come into the discussion to figure out what do we have to stop doing in order to free up money to start doing some things that could affect some of these other areas. But I will say the fact that the district was able to save millions of dollars to put forward for the referendum, it's not a bad place to start.
Thank you. Allie.
I will echo a couple of the things that Denise and Mary Lynn both said. I was so happy to learn about our Moody's rating, which was the financial assessment that showed that we are as financially healthy as it seems from the perspective of managing that budget. And if Denise came from a nonprofit scrap, I came from a special education public school scrap to a nonprofit scrappy when managing budgets. And I think that it should not, it should not be that way. I'm really passionate about the fact that our schools were never federally funded to support students with disabilities at the level that was initially passed when IDEA was passed, the law that ensures that all public schools educate learners of all needs. Our private schools don't have that same level of service provision. And so in order for us to be able to offer things like additional student supports for mental health, things like additional educational assistance in a classroom where there are multiple learners that need a lot of different types of supports, we have to invest in our teachers and our teaching staff. If we think that our students are the future, if we believe that our future leaders are in our classrooms, we have to invest in ensuring that those students are educated by highly trained and highly regulated and resourced teachers and support staff. So one of the things that I'm really curious about is looking at data and what is the overall staff composition, what is one teacher compared to 4 educational assistants, and the return on investment, if you will, so that we can look at the way that our classrooms are balanced. Balancing an education budget is always frustrating, and across the state, superintendents are coming together to finally advocate at the state level for appropriate and equitable funding for special education, which will mean that we won't have to continue to take funds from other buckets in order to meet those federal requirements by law. And I think that that's going to be a really big part of moving us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we are really close to time, so let's do 1-minute closing remarks, just so we can get folks out of here. And Allie, we'll start with you if you'd like to, anything you would like to share with voters that you haven't been able to share yet, and we'll do 1 minute for each one of our candidates going down.
Sure. Thank you, Deirdre, for hosting us tonight and for the Chamber. This has been really enlightening, and it echoes a lot of the questions that I'm hearing in talking with people, outside of their garages. And one of the biggest pieces that I want to take away with folks is that I'm really invested in learning and listening to a lot of different perspectives. I used to be just, I'm an advocate for special education. And over time, I've learned that to be an advocate for special education, I've had to be an advocate for everybody. And I've worked at the policy level to really support individuals from different backgrounds, and I think it's important that we center the outcomes, that we center data and research-based decisions, and that we're transparent about those decisions. But I hope that by bringing together a lot of unique perspectives, I can be one of 9 people serving on the board that can help to get us to our preferred future. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise?
Thank you. I think what I would say to those watching and those in the room is I have I'm pretty vested in the success of this organization. I feel very blessed to have been a part of it myself. I still am connected to so many people in this community that I met through my time at the Sheboygan Area School District schools. And I believe that the work I do all day allows me to bring a unique skill set and a viewpoint to the table at a time when I can make real change potentially happen for my own children who will be in this district for the next 10 to 12 years. 2035 is a long time from now. That's our last graduation. So I feel like it's a unique time. The perspective I bring and the skill set can be perhaps sometimes unpopular, but will push us to think bigger and better and really leverage the success and the foundation we have now, because it's pretty strong, but we all have areas to improve. So, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Mary Lynn?
Well, I can tell I was getting worked up answering the questions because my cheeks are all red and they're really hot. And part of that just reflects my enthusiasm and my dedication and my sense that public education is the very foundation of democracy. And we need to have a very strong school system. I've spoken like a real advocate for the district because I've been doing this now for 3 years, which was way different than it was 20 years ago. But I think that there are just gigantic challenges as well. 60% of our kids are low-income kids, and they move around a lot, and they have a lot of additional challenges. So there is so much more that needs to be done. It's just the work that we do is a constant challenge, but number one, we're succeeding. Number two, we need to succeed because we need our democracy to continue. And thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roger?
Well, thank you. I forgot to mention I'll just say this. The Army sent me to Syracuse University to get a master's in business administration and Army comptrollership, which is numbers. So, and I was the comptroller for the 82nd Airborne Division for 3.5 years, so I do understand a lot about public finance. And when you get bored counting beans, you go jump out of an airplane. And but I also have experience with nonprofits and that sort of thing. And how to get the most bang for the buck is something that I'm pretty good at. I think I'm qualified. I'm a teacher as well as an administrator. I still teach economics to my kids in Mexico, my juniors and seniors, by Zoom tomorrow. And time changed, now it's 9:30 instead of 8:30, so I get to sleep a little longer. So God bless you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. I'm a former Army wife and an Army brat myself, so
There you go.
thank
Thanks
you.
for paying my salary.
I wanted to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for joining us in the room today. It's been wonderful getting to know each of the candidates. We know that not all candidates were able to join us throughout the forums, but we wish you all the best. Remember that April 1st is not just April Fool's Day, unless you're foolish enough to not vote in your local elections. So please make sure you get out there and vote. Local elections impact you and your household. They impact you and your neighborhood. They impact you and your families and your community. By far, probably one of the more important pieces of our democracy is voting in local elections. So thank you again for everybody participating, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.